I'm Math 85, Dr. McGathy here. We are working on decimal operations. So we've already learned how to add, subtract, and multiply with decimals. Now we're going to work on dividing with decimals. Here is our method. If the divisor is a whole number, just divide as if you're dividing whole numbers. And then we just have to be sure to line up the decimal point in the quotient above the decimal point in the dividend. So here is how that works. So maybe if I had something like 1.524 divided by 3, for example. So notice this is the dividend, and here's my divisor. My divisor is a whole number, so what I'm going to do is do my long division as normal, dividing by 3. Completely ignore the decimal point. Just place it above in the quotient. And again, let's just label this is the divisor. Here's my dividend. And what goes up here is what you get when you divide. This is called the quotient. Okay, so I'm just going to place the decimal point in the quotient right above where it appears in the dividend. And now you do the long division algorithm as regular. 3 goes into 1, it doesn't, so move to the next digit. 3 goes into 15 5 times. 5 times 3 is 15. Subtract, you get 0. Bring down the next digit. 3 goes into 2 0 times, so make sure to put the 0 there. You can always do 0 times 3 and do that, or the shortcut, which is to just bring down the next digit after you write the 0 up there. 3 goes into 24 8 times. 8 times 3 is 24. Subtract, and we get that happy 0 remainder. So the quotient is 508 thousandths. Okay, so this works when your divisor is a whole number. Let's think about why that works. Here's my number 1 and 524 thousandths, right? Divided by the whole number 3. Or you could rewrite that, changing this into an improper fraction. 1,000 times 1 plus 524, 1,524 over 1,000 divided by 3. So the way that division works when you're doing fractions is that we multiply by the reciprocal of the second number of the divisor. And now you can just multiply numerators, multiply denominators. So this will be 1,524, times 1, and then over 1,000 times 3. But does it matter if I put the 1,000 first and then the 3? 1,000 times 3 or 3 times 1,000? It doesn't really matter. So I'm going to write it this way. 1,524 divided by 3. And then again, times 1 over 1,000, which I could think of as dividing this whole thing by 1,000. Okay? So what I just did here is sort of rearranged my terms so that I'm doing 1,524 divided by 3, and then at the very end, I can notice that I should have 1, 2, 3 places after the decimal point. Just like I had 3 places after the decimal point in my dividend, I'll have 3 places after the decimal point in my quotient. So this is the reason for why this method works. Let's do a few more examples. 12 hundredths divided by 3. Again, what I'll do is put the dividend divided by the divisor. My divisor is a whole number, so I can just go ahead and place the decimal point right above where it is in the dividend. 3 goes into 0 0 times, right? 3 goes into 1 how many times? 0 times. 3 goes into 12 4 times. 4 times 3 is 12. Subtract, we get remainder 0. So the answer here is 4 hundredths. Let's do another one. $4.99. Divide that by 12 people. How much does each person owe? So again, my dividend is $4.99. Divide that amongst my 12 people. I'll put the decimal point right above where it appears in the dividend. So 12 goes into 4 0 times, which should make sense because you got 12 people. Each person is going to be paying less than $1, right? Okay, 12 goes into 49 about 4 times, right? 4 times 12 is 48. Subtract, you get 1. Bring down your 9. 12 goes into 19 one time. 1 times 12 is 12. Subtract, you get 7, or 7/12. So really, if you did $4.99 divided by 12 people, each person would pay approximately 41 cents. All right, so this is how we divide when our divisor, the number that we're dividing by, is a whole number. Again, that's either written as the denominator of your fraction. For example, this 1.524 divided by 3, we could have written it as 1.524 over 3. Or it's the number inside the box in our division algorithm. Okay, so when our divisor is a whole number, just pretend like it's all whole numbers and line up the decimal point. So there's just one extra step when you're dividing by another decimal, when your divisor is a decimal point. The method is to make the divisor a whole number by moving the decimal point all the way to the right. And also, you'll have to move the decimal point in the dividend the same number of places to the right. Then we divide and place the decimal point in the quotient, just above the decimal point in the dividend, just like we did in the last page. So I'll give you an example, and then let's talk about why it works. So let's think about, for example, 24 hundredths divided by 3/10. So what we want is to only divide by a whole number. So in order to make this divisor a whole number, we move the decimal point one place to the right and move the decimal point one place to the right in the dividend as well. So really this will be 2.4 divided by 3, which I can write like so. 2.4 divided by 3. And now we can use previous methods. 2.4 divided by a whole number, 3. 3 goes into 2, it doesn't, so I'll put a 0 there. Line up the decimal point. 3 goes into 24 8 times with a remainder of 0. So the answer is 0.8. So why does this work? Think of this division problem as a fraction. 24 hundredths divided by 3/10. And we know with fractions, you can keep the same fraction or quotient and rewrite this as an equivalent fraction by multiplying both the numerator and the denominator by the same number. So if I multiply both by 10, or any power that makes this denominator a whole number, then that in effect moves the decimal point to the right, however many places it takes to make that a whole number. And then multiply the numerator by that same quantity, moves the decimal point to the right the same amount that you did in the denominator. So then you, in effect, get 2.4 divided by 3. All right, so now that we know that works, let's do an example or two. Negative 25.65 divided by negative 0.06. First thing, those negatives are just a pain. So what we'll do is we'll think about what the sign would have to be for the quotient, and then we'll ignore the signs. Negative divided by negative, the quotient will be positive, right? So I can just go ahead and ignore those signs now. So I might write it like this: 25 65 hundredths divided by 0.06. Remember, I want my divisor, this number here, to be a whole number, so I'll move the decimal point over 2 places. And whatever you do to the denominator, you have to also do to the numerator, 2 places over. So really, this becomes 2,565 divided by 6. Much easier problem. 6 goes into 2, it doesn't. 6 goes into 25 4 times. 4 times 6 is 24. Subtract, you get 1. Bring down the 6. 6 goes into 16. 2 times. 2 times 6 is 12. When we subtract, we get 4. Bring down the 5. 6 goes into 45 7 times. 7 times 6 is 42. Subtract, and we have a 3. Now I'd like to bring down my next digit. But notice I don't see any more digits in my number, but you can keep going by putting in a decimal point and adding a 0, because 2565.0 doesn't change the number. So let me go ahead and throw in that extra 0 and drop it down, remembering that I should put the decimal point in the quotient right above where it was in the dividend. Okay, 6 goes into 30 5 times. 5 times 6, 30. So I get a nice remainder of 0 here now. 427.5. And my answer is positive. All right, one more. 4 divided by 0.05. 4 divided by 5 hundredths. So 4 is the dividend. 5 hundredths is the divisor. Remembering that we want to make our denominator or divisor here a whole number. So I'll move the decimal point over 2 places. In the dividend, the decimal point comes right after the 4. So 2 places over, I'll have to put in 2 placeholder zeros. So let me rewrite this division problem. 400 is the dividend, divided by 5 is the new divisor. 5 goes into 40 8 times. Bring down the 0. 5 goes into 0 0 times. And then you can do 0 times 5 if you like to get your remainder of 0. And 80 is your answer there. All right, so now you should be equipped to do all of the computation problems in this section: adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, decimals. And make sure that you schedule a conference or ask questions via email, or click on those buttons like Ask My Professor or request an extension if you need one. Okay, we are here to help. Good luck.